Lilibet and Diana had been christened. Why would they use a title for their children that represents an institution they loathe so much?
A woman who spent over a year inside one of the most talked about homes in the world has finally decided she can no longer stay quiet.
My name is Meghan Sussex now. Call me Meghan Markle one more time, Mindy Kaling.
Not a journalist, not a royal insider with a book deal and a PR team behind her. A nanny. A middle-aged Mexican nanny who reportedly changed Lilibet's diapers, rocked her through 3 a.m. screaming fits, and sat with her through the kind of tiny, unglamorous moments that never make it onto a Netflix documentary or a magazine cover spread. Her name, according to the story now tearing across social media, is Elena Ramirez. And when she stepped forward, she did not come with a carefully worded press release or a polished television interview. She came with shaking hands, heavy eyes, and a voice that reportedly cracked more than once as she described what she says she witnessed inside the Sussex household in Montecito. The question the entire internet is now asking is brutally simple. Why would a woman with no platform, no publicist, no financial motive, and everything to lose step directly into the most intense royal media storm in years? Stay with us, because the answer she gave, and the evidence she claims to have, changes the shape of this entire story. Who is Elena Ramirez? Before we get into the specific allegations, it is important to understand who Elena Ramirez reportedly is, because that context is everything. This is not a disgruntled former employee hunting for tabloid money. By the accounts circulating online, Elena is a quiet, private woman who worked inside the Sussex home for more than 18 months. She was not a housekeeper, not a driver, not a personal assistant managing schedules and spreadsheets. She was the person trusted with the most vulnerable and irreplaceable thing in that household, a child. She reportedly helped care for Lilibet from the earliest days. The diaper changes at 3 in the morning when no one else was awake. The feedings when the baby would not latch and the crying went on and on. The slow, patient process of settling a newborn who did not know yet how to be soothed. This is the kind of work that bonds a caregiver to a child in ways that are genuinely deep and real, regardless of whatever else is happening around them. And that is what makes Elena's decision to come forward so significant to so many people watching this story unfold. She says she loved Lilibet. She says that bond was genuine, and that it never wavered even as other things inside that household allegedly began to shift and deteriorate. And that makes the question of why she is speaking now even sharper and more uncomfortable to sit with. She did not cite money. She did not mention a book. She did not announce an exclusive deal with any media outlet. The reason she gave, according to those who followed her public appearance closely, was guilt, not revenge, not a desire for attention. Guilt. She said staying silent made her feel complicit in something she could not continue to ignore. Now, pause on that for a moment. Think about what it actually takes for a private person with no safety net, no legal team, and no famous last name to walk into the spotlight and use that specific word. Complicit. That is not the language of someone looking to capitalize on a celebrity scandal. That is the language of someone who genuinely believes they witnessed something they feel morally obligated to disclose. Whether her account ultimately proves accurate or not, the emotional weight behind that statement is something many observers have found very difficult to dismiss. When Elena finally appeared publicly, she did so during a live stream hosted by Samantha Markle. And the descriptions of that appearance matter. She did not look triumphant. She did not look excited. By accounts of the broadcast, she looked completely drained. Her hands were reportedly clenched in her lap. Her eyes were red and heavy. Her voice shook as she spoke, but she kept going anyway. She kept talking through the discomfort because, by her own account, she had already spent far too long not talking. She said she had watched the home change. She described a household that, in the early days, had felt attentive and present and alive with the energy of a young family. And then she described watching that slowly erode. Schedules got busier, projects multiplied, deadlines stacked up. And the little girl's cries, she says, began going unanswered for stretches of time that no one on the outside would ever know about. That is where this story stops being royal gossip and starts being something else entirely. The audio clip that lit the match. But before Elena ever appeared on that live stream, something else had already ignited the internet. something shorter, sharper, and far more visceral. An audio clip. It surfaced on an anonymous account on X, formerly Twitter, and within hours it had detonated across every social media platform imaginable. Talk shows started, scrambling. Podcasts went live mid-morning. Comment sections across news sites turned into full-scale wars, and millions of people who had never paid close attention to the Sussex family were suddenly hitting play, rewinding, and hitting play again. The clip was short, only a few seconds, but the words in it were the kind that stop you cold. A woman's voice, cold and irritated in tone, was allegedly heard saying that she would never have had her daughter if it were not necessary to hold on to her husband, and then, allegedly, complaining that the child was annoying and needed to be removed from the room. Now, let us be completely clear here. The voice was never definitively verified. The clip came from an anonymous source. Audio forensics are complicated, and clips like this can be edited, manipulated, or stripped entirely of context. Those facts are real, and they matter enormously. Any responsible analysis of this story has to hold space for the very real possibility that the recording is fabricated, altered, or something completely different from what it appears to be on the surface. But here is what also cannot be ignored. The internet did not react the way it does to obvious hoaxes. Millions of listeners believed something about the distinctive blend of accents in the recording sounded familiar. The specificity of the language, the tone, the casual cruelty of the phrasing. Something about it sparked instant and massive debate in a way that a clean, obvious fake typically does not. And the timing made the reaction exponentially more explosive. The clip surfaced right as Meghan had reportedly announced a new Netflix deal worth tens of millions of dollars, centered on documentaries and inspirational content. Just days before the audio spread, she had been speaking publicly about motherhood, about balance, about the beautiful and chaotic joy of raising children. Then suddenly this lands, and the contrast between those two narratives, the public-facing version and the voice in that recording, was so sharp, so disorienting, that audiences online did not know what to do with it except tear into it from every possible angle. Some called it fake. Some called it definitive proof of something they had always suspected. Others occupied the complicated middle ground, the people who did not know what to believe but who found the details specific enough and the timing strange enough to make dismissal feel intellectually dishonest. And here is the question that kept this story burning long after it should have cooled. Does the possibility of fabrication automatically neutralize the allegation? Or do the specific, concrete details that followed in the days after make this something much harder to simply wave away? That is exactly what the world kept trying to answer. And that is exactly why Elena Ramirez's appearance, and what she brought with her, changed everything. The hospital documents here is where the entire story shifted in a way that many people were not prepared for. Audio clips can be dismissed. Personal testimonies can be challenged. But hospital records carry a different kind of weight. They are official. They are issued by regulated institutions. They are tied to systems of record-keeping that exist entirely outside the reach of any celebrity's PR machine. During the live stream broadcast with Samantha Markle, Elena did not just speak. She presented what was described as a scanned hospital admission record from a well-known pediatric hospital in California. The date on the document, according to Samantha's explanation during the broadcast, placed the incident more than a year before the Sussex household controversies began dominating headlines. The reason for admission was listed as severe abdominal pain. The patient named in the document was Lilibet, who would have been just 1 year old at the time. And then came the detail that immediately sent this story into another dimension entirely. The name listed as the responsible adult who brought the child to the hospital was not Meghan. It was not Harry. According to Samantha, the signature on the admission form belonged to Elena Ramirez. The nanny signed the child into a hospital. Not the mother. Not the father. The nanny. Samantha, visibly emotional as she presented the document, explained what she says happened. According to her account, Elena had tried repeatedly to reach both parents after Lilibet began showing signs of significant pain. When she could not get through, she called Samantha in a state of panic. Together, she says, they rushed Lilibet to the hospital. And because no parent was available to complete the formal intake paperwork, Elena stepped in and signed the admission documents herself. That single detail, a nanny signing a 1-year-old child into a hospital because neither parent could be reached, became the most discussed and most debated element of this entire story. But Samantha was not finished. She then introduced what she described as a second piece of supporting evidence. Screenshots of text messages she said were exchanged between Elena and Meghan on the same day as the hospital visit. According to Samantha's presentation, Elena had sent a message explaining that Lilibet was in serious pain and that they were taking her to the hospital immediately. And the response allegedly attributed to Meghan was brief. Just a few words. She was reportedly on set and asked to be updated later. Now it is critical to emphasize again that none of this documentation has been publicly authenticated. Hospital records can be forged. Text message screenshots can be fabricated with relative ease. The entire narrative being constructed here comes through Samantha Markle, a figure with her own complicated history and her own very public, very adversarial relationship with Meghan. Those facts do not disappear simply because the allegations are dramatic. But here is what made even skeptical observers pause. Legal analysts who weighed in on the public discussion pointed to one thing above everything else: authenticity. If those hospital records were genuine, if a licensed California pediatric facility had intake records bearing Elena Ramirez's signature instead of a parent, that document could carry enormous legal weight in any future dispute. Medical records tied to regulated institutions are not simple things to dismiss or explain away. At the same time, those same analysts pointed out the equally critical flip side. If the document were fabricated, the standard response from any high-profile legal team would be swift and overwhelming. An immediate lawsuit, forensic examination of the document, detailed public statements challenging every element of the alleged record. And here is what observers noticed in the days that followed. No immediate lawsuit was filed against Samantha Markle. No publicly released. Forensic rebuttal appeared addressing the document directly. No visible legal action was announced targeting Elena Ramirez in the immediate aftermath. Supporters of Meghan and Harry argued that silence was strategic, not concessive. Responding publicly, they said, would only amplify what they believed to be a calculated smear campaign designed to damage a woman who has spent years being targeted by exactly these kinds of coordinated attacks. But for the skeptics, the absence of a rapid and aggressive legal response became part of the story itself. In the modern media landscape, when official-looking documents are presented publicly and attributed to regulated institutions, the expected response from those with resources and legal counsel is not silence. It is swift and decisive action. And the silence, whether by strategy or by circumstance, left a vacuum that speculation rushed in to fill. Harry's quiet outreach to the palace. As the debate over Elena's allegations and the hospital documents raged online, something else was reportedly developing quietly behind the scenes. Something that introduced an entirely new dimension to an already sprawling story. Reports began circulating among royal commentators and palace insiders that Prince Harry had initiated private contact with the institution he stepped away from years ago. Not through a press release, not through a bombshell interview, through the kind of communication the palace actually understands. Private correspondence delivered directly to senior officials. And the reported tone of that communication was notable. According to sources familiar with the content, Harry acknowledged in writing that his use of royal styling during a recent unofficial visit to Canada had created confusion about his relationship with the crown. He reportedly accepted that the appearance had placed Buckingham Palace in a diplomatically uncomfortable position. Rather than defending himself or challenging the institution, he is said to have recognized that his presence had complicated matters for the monarchy. Think about what that represents, even as an unconfirmed report. A man who spent years publicly criticizing the institution that shaped him, who wrote a memoir that shook the royal family to its core, who stepped back from royal duties in one of the most dramatic exits in modern monarchical history. That man quietly sending a formal, constitutionally precise letter, acknowledging that his actions caused institutional difficulty. That is not the behavior of someone who has fully moved on. That is the behavior of someone whose connection to that world, whatever he has said publicly, has never entirely dissolved. Royal constitutional experts immediately noted what any formal re-engagement would actually require. This would not be a simple family reunion. Reinstating any level of official royal recognition would demand clearly defined boundaries, formal agreements about responsibilities, and almost certainly strict conditions. Limitations on commercial activities tied to royal branding, restrictions on public statements about the monarchy or other family members. Clear rules designed to prevent the exact kind of conflicts that defined the years of rupture. And that raises the question that observers kept returning to. Would Harry accept those conditions? Because returning to an official role would not mean simply recovering status or recognition. It would mean accepting obligations, expectations, constraints on the very independence that the Sussex brand has been built around. The palace, for its part, maintained its public silence. No confirmation, no denial. The familiar institutional mask remained fully in place. But within royal circles, even the possibility of re-engagement was enough to shift the entire conversation. After years of distance, televised accusations, and public disputes, the idea that a channel of communication might be quietly reopening introduced something neither side had offered in a very long time: the possibility of a different future. The 70-page dossier and the children's status. And then came the development that no one was expecting. While the world was absorbed in the Nanny controversy and the audio clip debate, a separate and arguably far more consequential situation was unfolding inside palace walls. According to multiple sources familiar with internal discussions, Harry's legal team submitted a detailed file directly to Clarence House and other senior royal offices. This was not a brief request, not a personal note. It was a comprehensive dossier, reportedly stretching across more than 70 pages, methodically assembled to address one of the most sensitive and persistent questions surrounding the Sussex family. The objective was straightforward. Harry's legal team wanted Archie and Lilibet formally recognized again as full members of the royal family structure. Let that sit for a moment. More than 70 pages of legal documentation submitted to the palace with the explicit goal of securing official recognition for two young children who have spent most of their lives largely outside the institutional framework their father was born into. The contents of that dossier, as described by those claiming knowledge of the document, were extraordinarily detailed. One of the central pieces reportedly included a genetic paternity test conducted by a certified laboratory in California, confirming Harry as the biological father of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. Alongside that result sat a sworn affidavit from Meghan herself, outlining the precise chronological timeline of her pregnancy, including medical appointments, travel schedules, and supporting documentation covering the months between 2018 and Archie's birth in 2019. The file also allegedly contained ultrasound records from the Beverly Hills obstetrician involved in Meghan's prenatal care, along with a notarized statement from a staff member connected to Portland Hospital in London, the facility where Archie was officially registered as having been born. Every piece of documentation, according to those describing the dossier, had been selected deliberately to address specific rumors that have circulated online for years. Questions about pregnancy timelines, speculation about surrogacy, persistent online theories challenging the legitimacy of the children's place in the line of succession. Harry's legal team appeared to believe that assembling this kind of comprehensive, institution-level evidence package would close those questions permanently. But Prince William's response reportedly did not unfold the way Harry's team expected. Instead of receiving the file quietly and processing it through standard channels, insiders claim William moved with unusual speed and unusual caution. He reportedly ordered the immediate involvement of a small internal advisory, body charged specifically with examining matters related to royal lineage and succession. Palace historians sometimes refer to this group as a succession review panel. Its membership includes legal experts, archivists, and constitutional advisors. Their function is to scrutinize documentation whenever questions arise about the monarchy's bloodline or the legal architecture of succession. Within hours of the dossier arriving, sources say William's office issued what insiders described as a temporary freeze on any discussion about formally reintegrating Archie into official royal status. The explanation cited internally? serious irregularities and contradictions within the documentation that required further investigation before any decision could responsibly be reached. Those words, irregularities and contradictions, became the most discussed phrase of the entire development. What exactly those irregularities were was never publicly specified. No official list of concerns emerged. Palace representatives declined to comment when journalists asked direct questions. And yet the mere suggestion that discrepancies existed inside a carefully prepared 70-page legal package reignited speculation across every corner of the media landscape. For Sussex supporters, this looked like institutional gatekeeping, the monarchy using procedural caution as a tool to keep the children at arm's length from recognition they are entitled to. For critics of the Sussex family, William's caution looked like exactly the kind of due diligence a future king is obligated to exercise when matters touching on succession are in question. What no one could deny was the underlying reality the dossier itself revealed. Harry, whatever he has said publicly about building a new life outside the royal system, had invested enormous legal and organizational resources into the question of how his children are positioned within that system. The man who walked away from the monarchy had just submitted 70 pages of documentation to bring his children back inside it. What happens now? So here is where we land. And this is the part where the real questions begin. Because every thread in this story, Elena Ramirez, the audio clip, the hospital documents, Harry's private letter to the palace, and the 70-page dossier, connects back to a single unresolved reality. The Sussex story is not over. It was never over. And the decisions being made right now, quietly, behind closed doors and inside palace walls, are going to shape everything that comes next. Let us talk about what the different outcomes actually look like. If the hospital documentation Elena brought forward is ultimately verified, if a California pediatric hospital's records genuinely show a nanny signing a 1-year-old Sussex child into emergency care while both parents remained unreachable, the implications extend far beyond royal gossip. We are talking about a potential child welfare conversation that no amount of public relations management can fully contain. That kind of documentation, authenticated and presented in the right forum, does not disappear with a statement from a spokesperson. If the documentation is fraudulent, if the records were altered, fabricated, or stripped of context to serve a particular narrative, then what we are witnessing is one of the most sophisticated and deliberately constructed attacks on a public figure in recent memory, and the legal consequences for everyone involved in producing and presenting that material would be severe. There is no comfortable middle ground here. Either the records are real, which raises genuinely serious questions, or they are not, which raises equally serious questions of a different kind. Now let us turn to the palace situation. Royal analysts have identified 3 specific signals that they believe will reveal whether the private communication between Harry and the institution is genuinely taking place. The first is Harry's own public tone. If he continues moving toward conciliatory language about the crown, rather than critical language, that shift could indicate that real negotiations are happening behind the scenes. The second involves King Charles. Even subtle remarks from the monarch about family unity, institutional continuity, or the long-term future of the royal family could hint at conversations that have not yet become public. Charles is not a man who speaks carelessly. Every word he uses in public is measured against what it communicates to those who know how to read between the lines. The third signal, which analysts consider the most significant of all, involves Prince William. If the Prince of Wales were seen publicly alongside Harry, even briefly, even in a controlled context, the entire narrative surrounding this family would reset overnight. William's body language, his public positioning, and his decision about whether to acknowledge the dossier's legitimacy will ultimately determine what reconciliation looks like in practice. None of those signals have clearly appeared yet. The palace remains publicly silent. And in that silence, the world keeps watching. Here is what we know for certain. Elena Ramirez came forward with a story that should not be easy to dismiss, even if verification remains incomplete. An audio clip spread across the globe and sparked debate that no amount of PR management has fully extinguished. Medical documents were displayed publicly, with no authenticated rebuttal filed in the immediate aftermath. A private letter reportedly reached palace officials, carrying language that reflected genuine constitutional awareness rather than casual family feeling. And a 70-page legal dossier landed on the desks of senior royals, triggering an internal review that cited irregularities no one has publicly defined. Every piece of this puzzle is unresolved. Every outcome remains possible. But here is the question that should keep you thinking long after this video ends. When a private woman with nothing to gain steps forward with specific, detailed allegations, when official-looking documents are presented and met with delayed response, when a man who publicly renounced the monarchy sends formal letters written in constitutional language, what does that picture, taken together, actually tell us? Is this a coordinated attack against a family that has spent years being targeted? Is it the slow surfacing of truths that were always too complicated to stay buried? Or is the reality somewhere in between, layered and messy and human in the way that real stories always are? That answer is still being written, and you are watching it happen in real time. If this story has you wanting to know more, and given everything we just walked through, it should, make sure you are subscribed, because this situation is moving fast, and we are going to stay on every development as it breaks. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you stand on Elena's allegations? Do you think the palace will ultimately bring Harry and his children back into the fold? And what do you make of the silence that followed those hospital documents? Hit the like button if you made it this far. Share this with anyone who follows the royal family or the Sussex story, because this chapter is far from finished. We will see you in the next one.